It's been a big day. It's been a great day. And we have talked about a lot of ideas and a lot of the issues that we face. And that's just the ones that we know about. We do not know what is coming around the corner or what 2024 will bring. So where to from here? What are we going to do to be ready for the future? And what is Freedom for Faith's role in all of this? Well, first of all, Freedom for Faith will continue to be a leading legal think tank in the area of religious freedom. Isn't that nice to know? We will continue to analyse bills and proposals. We will continue to produce submissions on our opinions and our briefings. And especially, again, want to acknowledge our phenomenal board, who's made up of some of the most eminent thinkers in religious freedom in Australia. One of the questions was, who is our board? Our board is Bishop Michael Stead, who is the chair, Ms. Kim Bailey, who is our secretary, and Jeff Falls, who is our treasurer. We have Pastor Mark Edwards, who is the chair of our board of reference and on our board. We also have adjunct Professor Mark Snedden, Dr. Alex Deegan, or Associate Professor now? Associate Professor Alex Deegan, Associate Professor Neil Foster, Professor Michael Quinlan, and Professor Patrick Parkinson. So simply based on the number of times I've said the word professor, you've got an idea of what we are going to continue to do as a legal think tank. But it's one thing to give a significant contribution to the debate. It's something else entirely to turn that contribution into a political outcome. Because in the end, laws are made by politicians, usually with one eye firmly fixed on pragmatism and electoral opinion, which poses both a threat and an opportunity. It's a threat because our voice is quiet. I could go over the historical and theological reasons, but the simple reality is the largest faith groups in Australia, the churches, have mostly withdrawn from the political arena over the past few decades. And our smaller faith groups, many of which are newer to our shores, they don't have the experience or the institutions that established churches have, and they often feel ill-equipped to engage into the political debate. The opportunity is that both those things are changing. Non-Christian faith groups are rapidly growing, and they are finding their political voice. And the Christian churches are starting to realise that withdrawing from politics, as we've seen all through today, is affecting our ministry, and it is damaging society. If you don't do politics, politics will do you. So the churches are realising we need to engage, and the other faiths are wanting to engage. But how? We know we want to do something. We don't know where to start. And we're busy with work and with family and with life and with ministry, and politics is weird. And it's hard to figure out what to do. So we find ourselves in a unique position, a growing interest in faith communities to engage politically, and all they need to do is be equipped. So what does it look like to equip them? Going back a step, we need to ask, what does it look like to effectively communicate with politicians? And I suggest 3 points that will help us think through the question. Firstly, politicians are people, and as people, they can be persuaded. But persuasion is a tricky thing to do. People are messy and emotional. We make decisions based on gut instinct. We're often tribal, supporting a belief not because we've thought through it, but just because the people who look like us believe that thing. And we tend towards confirmation bias, ignoring the evidence that challenges our beliefs and overemphasising the evidence that supports them. There's a lot of work that's gone on in persuasion theory. But one thing we know is that persuasion happens best in relationship. You cannot just present a set of facts or even a tightly argued legal argument and expect to make change, expect to change someone's opinion. Persuasion takes time. It takes conversation. It takes listening and all the messy dynamics of relationships. So, politicians are persuadable, but that needs relationship. Secondly, politicians are elected. Kind of obvious. But that means people had to vote for them, and they represent those people. Many politicians do actually believe that they are representatives of their electorate, and that the opinions of the people in their electorate do, to an extent, help shape their views. But even for the rest, all the rest of them, they need to get votes. And even the ones who live in very safe seats, they care about the success of their colleagues in marginal seats because that's how they get into government. So they are dependent on voters and, by and large, are responsive to them. Thirdly, politicians live in a bubble. The life of an average politician is insanely busy. Most of their time is rushing from one thing to another, one issue to another, and they spend their time surrounded by their parliamentary colleagues and their staff. And so much information comes through their office that the staff spend much of their time filtering out stuff and choosing what gets through onto their politician's desk. And this environment creates a bubble. And almost everybody in that bubble comes from the same ideological viewpoint. Interactions with people who disagree with that viewpoint are usually framed in confrontation, either on the floor of Parliament or in arguments in the media. So for us to bring a change to their thinking, we need to somehow break through the bubble in a way that can form relationships that can persuade. There are many ways to do this. You could work in government bureaucracy, end up advising politicians. You could get a job as a staffer. You could work in the media and be one of the voices that they hear when they turn on the TV, old media and new media. One of the most important is you could join a political party. MPs meet regularly with their local party members. With very little effort or commitment, you can be part of their bubble. And our political parties have got so few members that it would actually take very few Christians joining the party to actually have an impact on the culture of government. And we need to think about this. And you can talk to me later if you're interested in that idea. But faith communities as a whole have an added advantage that we make up many of those voters that politicians are so concerned about. How do we use that to break through the bubble and build relationships? How do we form a persuasive political presence as a community? Well, there are a number of places in a politician's life where communities like ours can connect with them. And these are 5 of them. Elections are the point in time when politicians are most sensitive to the fact that they need voters. Candidate forums are a powerful way of establishing a political presence. All you have to do is fill a room with Christians from the electorate, or Muslims, or Hindus, or Jews. Fill a room and invite the candidates and ask them some questions. Politicians want opportunities to talk to voters from specific demographics in their electorate. The media don't give them that opportunity. They want to know what our concerns actually are, and they want to know how to respond to them, because in the end, they want our vote. So the invitation we give is this. We will fill the room with voters, and they will tell you what they're concerned about, and you have every opportunity to win their vote. Even better, We're happy to brief you ahead of time on the issues that are likely to rise, so you can give your best answers. And maybe this will be the first time that you'd thought about a couple of these issues. So we can help you get the information and form your opinion. A positive and persuasive political presence. The next place where MPs hear from people is when we take the time to make an appointment and go and tell them what we are concerned about. Australian political polling is close to non-existent. The only information they have about the concerns in their local electorate is when people approach them and talk to them. So anyone making a meeting with an MP will have a powerful voice because they assume that one person motivated enough to go have a meeting reflects a whole bunch of people who are concerned in the electorate. Another important kind of meeting is when the local faith leader builds a relationship with the MP. I don't mean trying to convert them. I mean seeking to have a meeting every few months, asking how the MP is, asking if their community can help in any way, and communicating what concerns the community has. However, politicians often wonder if the leader of the faith community really does represent the members of their community. Often because that politician is a lapsed member of their own community, and they're so used to seeing some kind of priest or archbishop or minister saying something like, "Oh, I don't believe that." So we need to demonstrate numbers. And again, we want to do this in a way that creates relationship and a persuasive presence. Petitions show numbers, but it doesn't take that much effort to sign one, even less if it's an online petition. Bulk emails, where you just go onto the website, you put in your email address and the organisation sends it for you, are basically the same as a petition. They can both work, especially if you get really big numbers. But if someone takes the time to write their own letter in their own words, better yet, printed out and posted, even written by hand, that is something they care about, something they will take time for. It reveals a little bit about the sender. It's only a little relationship, but it's real. A real connection between the sender and the politician. So a personal letter is taken much more seriously and can be much more persuasive than a petition or a form letter. And dozens of personal letters from a range of people in the electorate shows that something serious is happening. So the meetings and the letters work together. The meetings give the chance for face-to-face dialogue to build relationship over time. The letters add weight and numbers, showing that lots of people are concerned. And this builds a relationship with the MP and the faith community that can shape policy over time. And then, on the back of this, professional advocates like myself can go and have a meeting, and we can go and talk about the details and talk about the actual legislation and the policy. And we have seen this approach work. Let me give you an example. We've already heard about conversion therapy in New South Wales. Heard it a lot. As Monica mentioned, leading up to the New South Wales election, Freedom for Faith decided to help churches run candidate forums. The decision was a little bit last minute. I only started in this job in November, but even with short notice, 35 electorates had a church-based candidate forum. That's more than a third of the electorates in New South Wales. Freedom for Faith provided how-to guides and resources and a set of recommended questions. And one of those recommended questions was on conversion therapy. And because we had 35 events, we had the opportunity to talk to the head offices of major parties and tell them, hey, these events are happening, these questions are coming, you might want to prepare and have good answers for your candidates. And we were able to, and then we had this conversation, and in the conversation we were able to explain the problems we had with the Victorian model, and as a result, Labor developed a set answer to the question, which Monica read out earlier. And between the set answer and Chris Minns' answer that he gave, we got these commitments that they would not use the Victorian model, They would not use Alex Greenwich's model. They would not ban prayer and preaching or consensual requests for support. And because all these events happened in churches post-COVID, they were live streamed. So we have them on YouTube. That was a win. It was a big win. But we got even more out of it. I went to a number of these events, and one of the most encouraging things that I saw was the candidate or the MP handing their business card over to the minister with their mobile number on it, saying, "Call me anytime. Call me if I can help." That's a persuasive presence, real relationship. I also heard from candidates how pleasantly surprised they were about the events. They expected a hostile experience, and instead they met loving and respectful engagement. One actually told me it was the best event they had attended that election. That's persuasive. So fast forward a few months, and we got to a proposal from the Department of Communities and Justice, and we got Alex Greenwich's legislation. So we did our think tank thing. Saying that 10 times fast. We helped coordinate a multi-faith submission signed by over a dozen major faith leaders responding to the DCJ proposal. And we engaged with the department consultation process, and we've engaged with the Attorney General and with the Premier to discuss our concerns and talk about what sensible balance of legislation would be, and all as a united multi-faith coalition. But we knew we had to get those other things into gear. Local MP meetings, letters. So we launched a new website, contactyourmp.org.au, which provided people with clear and concise how-to guides to call, write to, and meet with their MP. This includes a postcode search where you can find your MP, talking points when you're writing or when you're calling, a detailed guide to meeting with your MP, including a 2-page summary of the multi-faith position, a 2-page document approved by 15 different faith organisations that you can give to the MP and discuss with them what are our concerns, what are our requests, even down to the text of the email asking for the meeting. All of this is designed so somebody says, I can do that. I can write to my local MP. The email address and the talking points, they're right there. I can meet with them. I send this email. And if they get back to me, well, I set a time and I'll take this 2-page and I'll just go through it with them and talk about my personal concerns. Look, I preach a sermon every Sunday. I can do this. It's about taking people's growing desire to engage politically and equipping them to do it. And because we made it unbranded and not focused on any one faith group, the website was distributed widely. Anglican and Catholic, Sunni and Shia, Hindu, Baptist, Presbyterian, Pentecostal, Seventh-day Adventist, Korean, Chinese, Sri Lankan. To date, over 700 unique visitors have come to the site. Almost 3,000 have done one of those postcode searches to write to their MP. 1,000 have left their contact details, wanting to be kept up to date. And 150 searches on the MP meeting website saying, I want to figure out who my MP is so I can have a meeting with them. Even assuming a very low completion rate, it's likely well over 1,000 individual letters sent to MPs and dozens of meetings. And I know it's dozens of meetings because we have people constantly coming back to us and telling us, oh, I had this meeting, it went well. I had this meeting, they just said nothing useful, but it's happening. And it's made a difference. Only a few weeks ago, politicians didn't want to talk about this issue. Now, I have government ministers, not even their portfolio, wanting to have a meeting on it. And the multicultural impact has been massive. Muslim and Hindu leaders have been able to organise meetings that the Christians just could never have secured. And recently, Korean churches have been getting heavily involved, and suddenly MPs in Western Sydney want to talk to us. The impact has been extraordinary. It is a persuasive political presence. The job is not done. We still haven't seen the legislation. But in our meetings now with MPs, they show that they understand our concerns. And they do keep promising they're not going to do anything like Victoria. I mean, we'll wait to see what happens. But these are the most positive conversations we've had about conversion therapy with any government in Australia. And it's all due to your efforts and the efforts of the faith communities throughout New South Wales. So, if this is the model that will work, by building a persuasive political presence, where do we go from here? How do we prepare for the next issue? Firstly, candidate forums established a clear foundation for our discussion about conversion therapy for the following year. Next year, we have 3 elections in Queensland, Northern Territory and ACT, and potentially a federal election too. It's probably looking a little less likely at the moment, but it could come. And Freedom for Faith will be partnering with churches in all those elections to help run candidate forums. That means starting to build the relationships with denominational networks now, to find the churches in all these jurisdictions who will be willing to run the candidate forum, and connecting with other faith groups to resource them to do the same thing. It means understanding what the issues are in that jurisdiction and what's likely to be coming down in the next 3 to 4 years, so that we know what are the questions we need to ask, so that we've got the answers there on tape. Now, this process takes time. Most churches will need to think about the idea of hosting a candidate forum for a number of months. They have to take it to leadership. And we need to talk to them and start answering their questions and answering their concerns. But as we've already heard, the next big fight is most likely to be at a federal level. And there's going to be the Australian Law Reform Commission's report due out any day now, a religious discrimination bill, a potential human rights bill, all these things that we've already been hearing about today. And all these will happen well before the next federal election, probably. I can't see a double dissolution happening anytime soon. So there are no candidate forums. We do have some commitments from previous election, but instead we can be preparing our networks to be mobilising on letters and meetings when we need them. Again, it takes time to prepare to be able to mobilise quickly. The success of the conversion therapy campaign is that it had the buy-in of a wide group of faith leaders very early, who had existing networks of trust. And it had buy-in from senior leaders like bishops, sheikhs and presidents, through down to the local leaders like ministers, rabbis, imams, who were willing to communicate to their people and tell them, here's the website, here's what to do, takes you 15 minutes, go do it. That's what we need. We had these pre-existing relationships in New South Wales, and we need to create those relationships across the country. Building the relationships we need, so that when the time comes, we're able to say, let's do it. Go contact your MP now. Over the next few weeks, we will be redesigning the Contact Your MP website so it can engage with multiple issues simultaneously. We'll have a conversion therapy section for New South Wales and a federal religious freedom section, and a section for Queensland, whatever may be happening there, or Victoria, or whatever jurisdiction needs us to be mobilising at the time. So, that's the plan heading into the start of next year. Continuing the fight on conversion therapy in New South Wales as it echoes across the country. Many states don't have this legislation yet, and they are watching us to see what we do. As I keep getting reminded, is the UK, who keep quoting Victoria as best practice as they're discussing conversion therapy. Wouldn't it be great for them to be able to turn around and say, ooh, look, New South Wales rejected that model. That's best practice now. And we need to prepare to mobilise quickly for the next issues. That mobilisation means both the legal responses, being ready to do the submissions and to do the analysis, and the political engagement by resourcing churches and faith groups to have a persuasive political presence. Organising this takes resources. We are blessed to be supported by 5 key denominations: the Australian Christian Churches, Seventh-day Adventist Church in Australia, Australian Baptist Ministries, the Presbyterian Church of Australia, and the Sydney Anglican Diocese. But a large amount of our support does also come from donors. And you can see how our approach of unbranded, supporting resources can be incredibly effective. It does make it really hard to fundraise because we don't end up building a large supporter base. Many people who will be using our resources will have no clue that we're the ones who developed it. So it does come down to the people and the organisations who see the value of our approach and want to help it happen. We are about to launch our end-of-year appeal, and we are looking to fill maybe about a $20,000 budget gap. It's not huge, but we do run a very lean organisation. So that's one immediate way to be part of the plan. You'll be hearing about our supporter events, both online and in person, and you might know of people who would be interested in supporting us, people you could invite, people you could suggest could come and listen. Or you, or your church, or your organisation might want to invest in this strategy. But more importantly, we need to execute on the strategy and prepare for next year. We need to build these networks, connect with faith groups in Queensland, Northern Territory, ACT. We need to continue the pressure on the New South Wales government and plan to mobilise across the nation on these major freedom issues that we've been hearing about today. You all know people who need to get connected, who need to get informed, who need to get mobilised and prepared. And that's what we need to be focusing on as we head towards 2024.